What's good, y'all? It's your boy HB Final Round. We're going to talk about the fight with Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley. I'm going to do the post-fight analysis for the way Jake Paul approached the fight. I actually think he did everything right, man. He had the right idea. He actually did everything I said he should have done. Just a little bit missing here and there. Unfortunately, the big problem for Jake Paul in this fight is he did not have the gas in his tank. And I always tell fighters this: if you don't have gas in your tank, your ass ain't going nowhere. You're just a punching bag. It's just like a car. You can have a Rari, you can have a Hummer, you can have a Hellcat, but if you don't have the fuel source in the fucking tank, you are not going to do shit with that vehicle. So unfortunately, Jake Paul's technique and form and fundamentals were very sloppy last night. You can see the good thing about him was, like, you can see he was thinking the right things. He was trying to do it, but his body just wouldn't allow him to. That's the thing, man. Like, it takes time to develop into an 8 to 10 to 12 round fighter. That shit doesn't happen overnight. You know, it takes time to do that, and he's figuring that out. And I think it was very sobering for him, and I think he knows, like, he probably should stay in his lane with these and keep it at exhibition matches with hand-picked opponents, because, you know, that idea of facing Canelo one day, unless it's just a complete freak show to get a quick payday and get your ass whooped by Canelo, because Canelo's in a completely different universe than him in terms of boxing, he needs to stay in his lane. Because in order to get to that 8 to 10 to 12 round fighter where you're able to consistently execute your fundamentals and keep your cardio and your conditioning, that takes time and grinding, you know, and getting experience in the ring. It's going to be more nights of that shit that he experienced last night than knocking out guys like Ben Askren in one round and fucking knocking out Nate Robinson. You know, those, yeah, everybody loves boxing. Everybody loves competing in boxing when you have those easy moments. But the hard, like, you got to understand, more times than not, those 8-round fights like that, it's going to feel like that more times than not for Jake Paul. And are you really willing to go through that fucking ringer to be a contender? I don't think so. Not when you got a yacht with a bunch of bitches on it, you know, and you already got money. I don't think so. So he needs to really consider if this is something. I mean, there was a Freudian slip last night. He said, you know what, guys, I need to take a little break. I've been doing this for 18 months. And, you know, he says, I need to figure out what I'm doing with my life. That was a Freudian slip. I'm sorry. That was a guy saying, like, this shit is no joke. I didn't even face a guy who was truly a boxer, and I faced a guy who was significantly undersized compared to me, even though he's pretty built. And I had a hard time with him for 8 rounds. Imagine him going up against a pure boxer. You know, I don't even think he can beat Tommy Fury at this point, even though Tommy Fury has a lot of shit he has to work on himself. So I think Jake Paul really kind of got a taste, even though his ego was kind of creeping back in because he did win the fight. He kind of got a taste of what this shit is about, and it's no fucking joke. You already want to take a break, and it's been 18 months. There's motherfuckers who've taken 200 amateur fights, who have 30 professional professional fights on their resume. You think they have time to take breaks after 18 months, with the exception of maybe a couple months? Like, this is you want to be a fighter? Yes, you're a fighter. You proved that last night. You stayed in the fight. You didn't give up. You got hit with big shots. I give you that, Jake Paul. But if you're talking about you a bad motherfucker and, you know, you're going to be a contender one day, you need to slow your roll, because it's a lifestyle. And doing it for 18 months is not enough of a lifestyle for you in the sport to say you're going to be a contender one day, or we should put you on the level. What you're doing is impressive, especially on a business standpoint. But, man, come on, bro. You're already talking about dipping out. You know, I do believe he's going to take more matches, but I think he's going to be very cautious about the way he takes those bouts. You know, he's going to pick guys who are smaller than him and guys who are probably mixed martial artists. I believe that Conor McGregor would be a great matchup for him. That'd be a very interesting fight. Stay in your lane, but, you know, you need to. Now you're starting to piss off the boxing community. Like, I gave you a chance to keep proving yourself. You know, me being somebody who's part of the boxing community, I gave him respect. I gave him props. He works his ass off. He trades off. But last night we saw him for what he is. He's an amateur. I know technically on paper he's a professional, but at the end of the day, he has an amateur level of ability. And, you know, if he wants to do this shit, then you need to humble yourself. But I don't think he wants to. And two, it's just like, bro, don't say like you're doing anything special, like your resume is impressive. Dude, you face some kid. He was talking about this other YouTuber, Deji, the beast from the Middle East, as if he's Tyson or something. He talked about being a basketball player. He talked about being an MMA fighter who really has no striking acumen, didn't really give a fuck to be in there in the first place. And, you know, I'll give you Tyron Woodley, but dude, that's not an impressive resume. And if you think you're the only one who's, in a sense, in a certain context, I give him a lot of credit. But dude, look at Lomachenko and how he came into boxing, his professional debuts, you know, or his first professional fights. I think he was contending for a fucking title against Orlando Salido. So don't give me this shit that what you're doing is you're doing something that most boxers don't. I do say this, you know, he is being put in the spotlight very quick. He performed well in front of his hometown. And, you know, considering he doesn't have much experience, I give him a lot of props for handling that pressure. And, you know, he's doing very well considering where he's at with his 3 years of experience. He's doing very well. That being said, so let's get into kind of what happened last night in terms of the strategy. I think Jake Paul had the right idea. He has a great trainer in BJ Flores. It's unfortunate. I watched an interview with BJ Flores. It sounds like he doesn't want to train fighters. It's unfortunate because he sounds like he seems really good. He seems like a really good trainer because you can see the things he was telling Jake Paul to do. He wanted to do them, but once again, he just didn't have the gas in his tank. So one of the things I said before the fight is like Jake Paul needs to take what Tyron Woodley gives him. You're the boxer. You're the one that's been doing this a little bit longer within this sport. Okay, so be the boxer. Take what he gives you. You're the bigger man. You can mix it up a little bit. You're not a pressure fighter particularly. You showed you like to step back and counter. So take what Tyron Woodley gives you. If Tyron wants to go back, okay, close the distance a little bit. You know, you don't got to cut off the ring. You're not a pressure fighter, but, you know, half step your way in, inch your way in, you know, throw your feints and be patient and wait to counter. You know, obviously he's going to want to, you know, Jake Paul wanted to use that overhand right. And he did. He landed some last night. Another thing I pointed out was like, okay, if Tyron Woodley wants to put pressure on you and close the distance, okay, box off the back foot. You know, throw your feints. You know, box off the back foot. You know, head movement we didn't really see too much good head movement from Jake Paul. That's one thing. If he wants to keep on taking fights and getting better, he needs to, both of these fighters, Tyron Woodley and Jake Paul could have used some fucking head movement last night, but especially Jake Paul if he wants to continue on this gravy train and be successful. Head movement. But I didn't mention that last night. I knew that he wasn't going to develop that overnight. And, for me, the main focus for Jake Paul is like, take what Tyron Woodley gives you. If he goes forward on you, okay, box off the back foot and feint him. Utilize your jab, utilize your sides, keep him at the end of your jab. Boom, you know, feint him. See what he's gonna do. You know, if he wants to go back, okay, close the distance. Don't rush your way in. Once again, feint him, throw your jab, keep him at the end of your punches. And then regardless of whether he's coming to you or you're going to him, be patient and draw him out. Draw Tyron Woodley out and counter him with the overhand. For me, one of the things I wanted to see more of Jake Paul do last night was throw his left hook, a check left hook. And he did at times. He did throw his left hook. He showed that he's kind of developing it to a certain extent, but he didn't set up his overhand right the way I preferred him to. I wanted to see Jake Paul utilize that check hook more when Tyron Woodley was closing the distance on him. Or regardless, if he was going to Tyron Woodley and waiting for him to come and attack him. So instead of looking for that right hand early on, what Jake Paul should have done, this is where I would have made a little of an adjustment. It's like, okay, every time Tyron Woodley wants to come at you, boom, check him with the hook. Nice little tight check hook and pivot out. Okay, and then reset, get back to the center of the ring. Maybe you come forward this time because he doesn't want to look for the action. Okay, feint him, jab him, And all this is doing, these feints and these jabs, you're just trying to draw Tyron Woodley out. Jab him to the body to mix it up, to not be predictable. And as Tyron comes, okay, another check hook. Okay, now we're backing up. Tyron's getting aggressive. Okay, once again, he's backing me up to the corner. He's backing me up to the ropes. Maybe I feint him. I create a little space for myself, and then boom, another check hook. So you keep on showing them this check hook every time he comes in. You imprint it in his brain. Every time I come in on Jake Paul, he's hitting me with this check hook. I need to make an adjustment. So later rounds, you imprint it in Tyron Woodley's head, like every time he will come in, he's going to hit me with a hook. Now it's getting that 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 rounds. And now this is when you start uncorking the bomb. Okay? Now maybe, once again, whether you're coming forward or whether you're fighting off the back foot, you're feinting, you're jabbing, you pull Tyron out of his shell, and maybe now you step back and you light him up with the right hand. He doesn't see it coming. You've imprinted in him to see that left hook, and now you set up that big punch, and maybe you get that knockout because he doesn't see the punch coming. So that was the only thing I would have liked to see, and obviously I would have came up with a little bit more sophisticated of a manner of how to set that up. But ultimately, what kind of killed Jake Paul last night was he didn't have the conditioning. Fair enough. This is one of his first professional fights, and he's taken it 8 rounds, so I do give him that. And it's not bad that he got to experience that. Now we'll see if this is something he really wants to do, and at least now he knows I can get through 8 rounds, I can face adversity, and I can make it through. But, one thing I'll say this, he did mention this in the post-fight that his legs weren't there, because his legs didn't look there. His legs looked very fucking sloppy. He looked off balance. His stance didn't look properly balanced. His center of gravity wasn't there. His legs looked shaky. Maybe that's a result of, being in the spotlight, getting nervous, or maybe he overtrained. I don't know. But his legs did not look under him last night. He looked very sloppy with his technique, but I give him props because I could see he was trying to work his feints. I could see he was trying to move around and pivot and L-step. I can see that he wanted to throw his jab, but the distance was off, the timing was off at times. So you could see you have this young man thinking in the right ways, moving around, jabbing, going down to the body with the jab every once in a while. And, when he would step back, he would counter properly. He threw his left hooks at times, but he just didn't have the conditioning. And as a result, it was just very sloppy. And, every once in a while, he would get his second win. He would be able to throw a good overhand right or, throw a good combination. But ultimately, because he wasn't properly conditioned, he kind of had a sloppy performance, but he was able to pull out the victory. I do think he won the fight. Even if Tyron got that knockdown, which it technically was a knockdown because the rope saved Jake Paul, but you got to think, Jake Paul's he's not the champion, but he's the cash cow of the card, and they want to keep the gravy train rolling. He's going to get the benefit of the doubt, okay, by the ref. You're not going to... And he deserves to get that benefit of the doubt. He was able to stay on his feet, keep his balance, and stay in the fight. So I got to give him a lot of credit for that. He is a fighter. But, I think that Jake Paul was a little bit more diverse in his attack. He let his hands go a little bit more. And I think ultimately he squeezed out the victory. He has a lot to learn from this. We learned a lot about Jake Paul. He's at an amateur level. Maybe not even so much that. Maybe if his cardio was better, we could have saw a better, clean performance. But, if he doesn't, I don't know how you improve that any other way than just getting the experience in the ring as a professional fighter. I don't necessarily, you can get there with just sparring. But is he willing to go through that ringer? I don't know. Fuck if I know. Didn't sound like it last night at the end of the fight, but... look, man, good performance. It's still very impressive. Like I said, you got to put things in context with him. He is starting this out. He's still a baby in this game. He's being thrusted into the spotlight, which he's asking for. He's used to it. But he went up against a legit combat athlete, somebody who's athletic and somebody who can strike to a certain degree and has his power translated through the boxing glove. But ultimately, Jake Paul has a lot of work to do, man, if he wants to take this shit seriously. But if I'm him, I stay in my lane. I have fun with this. I take certain matchups that I know I have a huge advantage in, and I don't even entertain that Canelo shit, man. Just keep doing what you're doing. Have fun. You've created a new avenue. Stay in your lane, dude. Stop insulting us boxers by saying what you're doing is, I'm doing so like I hear him in the press conference. Oh, my first 5 fights are, no boxer has done that. I get it. You look at some of these up and coming prospects like Gervonta Davis, for instance. They're giving tomato cans, some Mexican rolling fucking tortillas off the fucking street, and they give him $50 to get his ass whooped. I get it. He's not so that's why I don't blame him too much for that. But let's not act like you're taking on, you're taking on guys who are smaller than you. You're taking on guys who aren't even boxers. With the exception, I will give you Tyron Woodley. That was a good challenge considering where he was in his experience. But let's not act like you're a world beater. Now, if you want to be a world beater, you're willing to put the time and effort, okay, I'll fuck with you. But I don't think that's really what he wants. You heard the Freudian slip last night. Like, I got to think about what the fuck I'm doing with my life. That's a question you ask sometimes when you're in that ring and you're having a hard time. And you figure out how hard it is, and that if you want a career in the sport, you're gonna have to deal with that frequently every fucking year to get to become great. Doing that shit for 18 months, that's baby shit, bro, compared to some of these fighters that go out here, they take on 200 amateur fights. This is a lifestyle for them. Some of them will take fights, more than one fight in a day. And they go in professional and they put like 50 fights on their professional career. Come on, bro. Like, what you're doing, don't this is where you start to insult me and all the other people in the boxing community, is when you're talking as if you're doing something, more special than what the guys who truly make this a lifestyle do. And that's when we start to get pissed with you. Dude, stay in your lane and we'll fuck with you, but you want to get ahead of yourself and start talking shit, and saying what you're doing is more special. In a business sense, yes. Pay-per-view buys, yes. You're doing something very unique and special, but don't sit here and tell me you're doing something fantastic in terms of your boxing resume. You don't have a boxing resume right now, dude. You beat up a YouTuber, you beat up MMA fighter that doesn't strike, that doesn't even respect the art of striking. You beat up a basketball player who didn't know what the fuck he was getting into, and you beat up Tyron Woodley, which I'll give you props for, because he's a great athlete and a combat athlete, but ultimately smaller than you and is not a boxer. You take on Tommy Fury right now, you're probably getting fucked up. You take on Andy Cruiserweight in your division, who's not even well known, you're getting fucked up. You take on a high-level cruiserweight, you're getting killed. So chill out, Jake Paul. I like you, man. I respect what you're doing. I do think you're a fighter, but don't get ahead of yourself because you're starting to insult people in our community. Put in the time and the effort when you work truly before. Now, if Jake Paul came in and he fucking floored Tyron Woodley, I'd be like, yeah, this is impressive. This is some stupid shit we're watching here. This dude is really doing some big shit, and he's changing the game. But we saw him last night. He got I don't want to say exposed because he's where he's supposed to be, but he's got a lot of work to do. He's at an amateur level right now. He may be a professional on paper, but he's at an amateur level. He needs to chill out. There's lightweights that will fuck Jake Paul up, okay? So there's amateurs that will fuck Jake Paul up. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is your boy HB, final round. Subscribe to my channel. Tell me what you think below. Did you think Jake win? Just throw your thoughts down, man. Let's have a conversation. I love talking about this shit. It's fun. At the end of the day, this is still boxing, right? And for me, I love this sport. Think of it like if I truly love music, I love all genres of music. I may not blast country and fucking classical music every day in my car, but that doesn't mean I can't appreciate that aspect of music and understand its value. And it's the same thing here. This is more of the entertainment side of our sport, and it's more, business. But nonetheless, these two guys going in there, it's not fixed. It's not fixed. We learned that last night. Both of those guys got hit with some big shots, and you can't choreograph those shots. You can't. And, I knew a lot of people thought that, this was disrespecting the sport and they thought it was all choreographed, but it's not. You figured that out last night. You have two guys going head to head, giving it their best, giving it their all. And to me, that's still boxing. I love watching high-level boxing to mid-tier to lower-level guys, or gals. I respect it all. And, for me, I can learn a lot from the pros, and I can learn a lot from the amateurs. I'm also a trainer, so maybe that's why I take interest, because I'm always looking for ways people can get better, seeing holes in people's game, seeing how they can improve. I love the sport. So if you truly love the sport, there should be no reason why, you respect this enough to pay attention to it. I don't think it's a disgrace to the sport. I think it's bringing more eyes, more viewers. It's entertainment. It's more highlighting the business and the entertainment side of the sport. But nonetheless, when you got two guys who are duking it out, regardless of the level, I'm paying attention, because I just love studying and analyzing the sport. So that being said, man, it's your boy HB. Final round. Get at me.